Ryan, can you speak to the importance of, this whole idea about a hope for a revolution? I think that one of the big lessons here from what you've written and what you've talked about a lot, people lose faith. There's not a lot of hope out there right now. And that's why they stoke so much of it into Alex, into Rashida, into Ilhan, into Corey, into Jamal, and so on. Greg Kassar, obviously down here, you have Maxwell Frost, people looking around, just hoping against all hope that we can elect people into positions of power and they're actually going to work on behalf of the people at a time where it's so desperately needed in a way.
Someone needs to be the Mockingjay.
Yeah. Well, you thought Nina would have been there.
No, Alex, to me, that moment in 2018 was a moment where she could have, to me, like I saw that. And I also think a lot of it, as I said at the time, is maturity, lack of wisdom, a lot of things. I mean, she was a kid. I was old enough to be her mother. So, you don't put those kind of expectations of people. But yes, we need a Mockingjay.
I still think, and I mention this all the time when it relates to Jimmy, in that he sucks all the air out of the room. It doesn't mean that his idea wasn't correct. You should have forced the vote on Medicare for all. But when you are so scorched earth and literally shit and piss on everybody, you do not know how to build coalitions. So what you ultimately end up doing, it's no different in many ways than just saying, half of you people are deplorables. Oh yeah, well, I'm going to go vote for Trump just to spite your ass. And I think that there really is something to be said for people who, on the one hand, I'm not concerned about certain content creators who don't want to rub elbows with Jimmy either because they're jealous or whatever the hell the reason may be. But there is something to be said for if the face of who is trying to lead this effort isn't welcoming or isn't doing it in somewhat of a professional manner, it's going to turn people away.
Dolly Parton.
Everybody be like Dolly Parton.
That's what
But I really do think that with the actions of Alex, with the actions of Fetterman,
he's dead to me.
So but the worst part of these actions is that it forces people to lose faith in this idea that we can have a political revolution in this country, or that they even want to try.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that's the biggest lesson here from why people obviously shouldn't put so much faith in it. I think all the faith needs to be put into the labor movement because that's where the real change can happen. But we still need to participate in elections despite what people think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why I have made the subtitle the hope, AOC and the hope of a political revolution, because it's about the first Bernie Sanders campaign into the squads campaigns and then the second Bernie Sanders campaigns. And, hope is meant to be left open-ended in that subtitle. People's hopes were very much invested in this political revolution. And I think what you said in the beginning is wise, that the world is a better place for the Bernie Sanders wing having risen up and gotten some power inside the party, and the House is better for having AOC in it rather than Joe Crowley. But it's not by any means what kind of people were envisioning, in 2015, 2016, as Bernie's filling, giant fields with tens of thousands of cheering people. And I think part of the hope comes from people look around and they recognize that all their friends agree with them. All their friends see the problems in the system, that it makes sense that this is what we ought to do. And then you confront this system that is just so stacked against you. It just doesn't make sense. There's got to be a way. And also, and when you step back, you're like, wait a minute, there's 435 members of the House, and we had 6.
Right.
Like that's
yeah.
And frustrated with those 6. Like that, going from 6 to 218, which is what you need, to start actually passing legislation, is couldn't be a steeper climb. And so to feel like, and so I think a lot of people, including people that were, who used to work for some of those squad members that I quote in the book, were saying we weren't going to have 218, and so you're not going to kind of talk your way and schmooze your way to 218. You just have to use your position for the narrative change that's possible, for the kind of organizing potential for down the road, to create the conditions for an eventual political revolution. and that wasn't really the route that they took.
No.
No, and then the question becomes, can they even get it back? But what makes it worse is that you only need to look at the actions of a Matt Gaetz and a Marjorie Taylor Greene. You can say all the negatives about them, but the fact is, if they want to go scorched earth and hold things up in DC, they'll do it. They have no...
Right, no, I don't... their strategy is what I would love to see. Like, when they're doing stuff like that, I'm sitting there thinking, if only the people on the left would do this stuff. You know? Like, I don't hate their strategy. They just stand for really crappy stuff.
As we bring the conversation full circle, do you think it just has to do with the fact that people like Marjorie and Gaetz and, you know, you could name a whole bunch of different, you know, GOPers, you know, Chip and anybody else that you want to throw out there, that they're just not accepted in DC anyway, so it's not like they care. But for people even in what you would consider the so-called progressive wing of the Democratic Party, they care about how they're treated in DC. Is it really that simple, or is there something more to it?
They're playing the game.
It's a little more, there's a little more to it than that. And actually, it's fascinating that there's been a kind of an AOC arc with MTG.
Right.
You know, when she supported Kevin McCarthy, and you know, she's you know, otherwise done some things that have been pretty supportive of party leadership. You know, she got kicked out of the Freedom Caucus. She, like a lot of her original supporters, are, you know, think that she's a complete and total sellout. which is you know, the whole thing has kind of been fascinating to watch. But also there in Washington, there is a very well financed and sophisticated outside apparatus to support people like Gaetz, who want to do this sort of thing. Like they own buildings, they have staff, they have access to money, they have organizing capacity, strategic capacity. That just absolutely does not exist on the left.
That's true.
There isn't even a building. There isn't even an apartment. Like, they have apartments they can live in while they're in DC, but there's no headquarters of any organized, well-financed, sophisticated operation.
Do you think if there was somebody, again, maybe we get lucky this year, maybe one person is able to break through? I still think AIPAC is going to get one of the squad members out. I think the most likely person who will get knocked off is Ilhan Omar, for obvious reasons, and they will go full bore into that race. But with that said, do you think it's possible that there could be an elected official that could be brought in that can sort of be, you know, the mother or father, whatever, but like the mother hen of the situation?
Well, that was my Nina hopes. Sure.
But do you think that that's possible? Because it's not just the 6 members that we talk about. You know, there are other members that are in there. You know, Raul Guevara, you know, you have Greg Casar, you have Maxwell Frost. I mean, you have a handful of people that will vote for universal health care, that will vote for a living wage, that will vote for strengthening labor, that will vote for ending endless war. I'm curious if you think that there is that possibility that if there was somebody who came in there, because let's be honest, when you look at the Freedom Caucus or whoever, you know, relates to, you know, the bloc in the GOP that does what they do, most of them are answering to Trump, and everybody knows that. But is it possible that there could be somebody that could come in that could be that person that could corral, let's say, 15 to 20 representatives in Congress that could hold bills up without getting, let's say, a public option in a bill? I'm just saying.
I mean, I think conditions are constantly changing, and so are your assets. And so you could see a 15 to 20 person block, you know, forming. I think that's certainly possible. And at that point, it's not necessarily the case that there's like an individual leader, you know, on different issues. It might be different things. If Jamal Bowman survives, I think he'll be an interesting one to watch. Your point about Greg Casar is a good one, but I think the rest of the squad members, like, if they have a dozen plus allies, and they have a majority, like it's a different scenario. But you know, but like I said, it's always changing.
Yeah. Well, we know that it's certainly not just the Congressional Progressive Caucus, because if only all those people were actually progressives, then we wouldn't have half the problems that we have. So it's just funny, like what people consider progressive, because like right now, Jamal Bowman is on my crap list. And
what did he do? Pulling the fire alarm or?
No, I don't care about that.
No, I'm kidding. What did he do to get on your crap list?
No, because the bottom line is he attacked Norman Finkelstein. Okay.
Oh, I didn't see this. What happened?
And he called him out. He basically called him out and saying his comments were anti-Semitic. And apparently one tweet had gone. He was responding to whatever it is that Norman says. And Norman has been making this. He's been on our show. You've heard him talking. He's been making the same points about the same thing forever. So I can't imagine that Jamal heard anything otherwise, but apparently his donors didn't like his response. And then he put out something calling Norman in his comments anti-Semitic. So when you're Jamal Bowman and you're going to then go criticize somebody like Norman Finkelstein on Israel, it's not a good look. It's just really not a good look.
On top of that, I'm pretty sure that Norman is a constituent of Jamal's.
That's the thing too. Yeah.
And Bowman still lost J Street's endorsement. So whatever he said didn't.
So why? Why is he doing that? Why is he like simping for the Zionists?
And they have to know that AIPAC is coming for them no matter what. You're not going to change that reality.
I feel like they're not handling this moment very well. Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.